All right, everyone. Name the only team in major college football to have defeated both Baylor and UCLA in a bowl game since 2010. I'm not going to give you much time. I think I could have figured this out, but this is a guy that basically memorizes bowl scores. But it would have taken me a long time to figure this one out. It's Illinois. The Illini, they defeated UCLA and Baylor in bowl games just in the last 4 years. But they're back in a bowl game for the first time in 3 years and taking on Louisiana Tech in the Heart of Dallas Bowl on December 26th. Let's run down this matchup. It's the first of 10 Big Ten bowl appearances. The Big Ten is an underdog in all these games, even against a Conference USA opponent. But let's put it into context. Illinois is the final seed coming out of the Big Ten at the 10th seed at 6-6, and Louisiana Tech, having gone to the Conference USA Championship game 8-5, 7-1 in the conference. They are the number 2 seed out of Conference USA. And if you look at the Bulldogs' results, of course, they took on 2 heavy opponents in Oklahoma and Auburn. The final scores of those games, they lost to the Sooners 48-16. They lost to Auburn 45-17. They had the tremendous win over Rice 76-31. We saw what the Owls did last night on Christmas Eve against the Fresno State Bulldogs, winning that one comfortably 30-6 in the Hawaii Bowl. So that's a nice win for La Tech there over Rice 76-31. Then they lost the Conference USA Championship game, as we alluded to Marshall 26-23. But again, now puffing up Louisiana Tech's schedule is a nice effort by Marshall in completing a 13-1 season, defeating Northern Illinois in resounding fashion 52-23. So Louisiana Tech, pretty good resume for a Conference USA team. For Illinois, 6-6 on the season. They really had to rally late in the campaign to get a bowl bid. They really sneaked into postseason play. If you wouldn't have seen the bowl listings, few would have guessed that Illinois actually squeaked into postseason play. Again, they were behind the 8 ball most of the season, but to Tim Beckman's credit, made it into postseason play. Illinois at 6-6, lost the non-conference showdown against Washington out west 44-19. They were dominated in that game. Score not indicative of how much they were dominated in that game against the Huskies. Lost to Nebraska 45-14, lost to Wisconsin just by 10 points there. Their signature win was against Minnesota by far, 28-24 in that one over a pretty good top 25 Minnesota team. They lost to the Buckeyes in Columbus by 41. The 2 huge wins at the end of the year to get them to postseason play against Penn State 16-14 when they hit the game-winning field goal at the gun. And in the showdown rivalry game against Northwestern, the Illini win at 47-33. The winner of that game going to a bowl game, so it was all set up for both Northwestern and Illinois at 5-6. Let's size up the Illini. There's a lot of troubling and concerning statistics right here and evidence of why they may not fare well against Louisiana Tech. This is, first of all, the last ranked Big Ten team in red zone efficiency offensively. Number 14 in the Big Ten in red zone efficiency. They have the worst point differential of any team in bowl play. That's taking into account 38 bowl games, 76 FBS teams. Illinois get the worst point differential. They're 114th out of 125 teams in the nation in rushing offense, 117 points per game. They are last in the Big Ten in points given up at 34. They've got a couple field goal kickers in David Reisner and Taylor Zalewski, who have hit on just 7 of 13 field goals. So that's the negative for the Illini. Just doesn't add up really well, their stats against quality competition, aside, again, from the upset against Minnesota 28-24. Against the better teams, Reilly O'Toole actually played better than Wes Lunt. Wes Lunt, the bigger name, the bigger resume coming from Oklahoma State, and he played well in 2013 for this team. But Reilly O'Toole, the senior, actually played, again, better against the better competition. Look it up. 59%, 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. He had 281 rushing yards and a touchdown. He had, in that Minnesota victory, a 14-for-21 day. He also led this team to wins over Penn State and Northwestern, and specifically against the Wildcats. Rushed for 147 yards, passed for 147 in an almost 300-yard effort total offense against the Wildcats in winning that game. Illinois, again, we mentioned, near the bottom of the country in FBS football in rushing, but they rely on Josh Ferguson. When they do run it successfully, he had 75 yards against Northwestern. He ran for 685 this year and 8 touchdowns. Freshman Mike Dudek. Check out some YouTube videos on this kid. He's extremely athletic. Was only offered a big-time college scholarship by Illinois. Mike Dudek, 69 receptions as a freshman, 965 yards. So he should, and for Illinois' sake, needs to get over 1,000 yards in receptions this year, 6 touchdowns. He finished off that Penn State game, 11 receptions for $115 against the Nittany Lions. Geronimo Allison caught 37 for 526, Illinois' second most productive receiver, 5 touchdowns, but he caught just 5 in his last 4 games for the Illini. They need to find Allison in the passing game. We talked the kicking situation, 7 of 13. Defensively, look for these names against Louisiana Tech in the Heart of Dallas Bowl. It's Mason Monheim, who led the team with 108 total tackles. He had 6.5 tackles for loss. Zane Petty had 104 tackles for Illinois. And Ernest Thomas, 9.5 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks. All right, Louisiana Tech runs the football, and they do it with Kenneth Dixon, who ran for 21 touchdowns, rushing 28 total touchdowns this year. That's a school record for this season and a school record in his career. Actually, that's 21 rushing touchdowns this year. He had 28 2 years ago. Had a really down year the year in between in 2013 with like 15 touchdowns. 59 touchdowns for Kenneth Dixon. That's a school record at Louisiana Tech, where they have majored in offense for quite some time. Cody Sokol is their quarterback. He's been very productive, 3,200 yards, 29 touchdowns, 13 picks. Trent Taylor, his top target, 62 catches, 814, 9 touchdowns. And Paul Turner's caught 39 for 446 and 4 touchdowns. Defensively, Louisiana Tech has turned over the offense more times than anybody in the country. They have more forced turnovers than anybody. Darius Barnes has 5 picks. Xavier Woods, 5 interceptions. Vernon Butler is the big playmaker in the opponent's backfield at 13.5 tackles for loss. This team has picked off 25 passes, so look out. Reilly O'Toole and Wes Lunt in this game. 5 Louisiana Tech players, starters, are ineligible, though, against Marshall, and they still came within 3 of the Thundering Herd, and they will be ineligible. We're talking 5 starting football players, not series impact star players, but nonetheless, 5 starters along the lines, a little bit at linebacker, will not be playing for the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. That said, I just think the evidence weighs in the Bulldogs' favor in this one. Again, Illinois just has too many weaknesses. They're not going to make field goals at the end of the game. They're going to be very shaky if they need to kick a field goal late in the game. They're not productive offensively rushing the football. They're not productive in the red zone. That points to poor decisions by the quarterback play and receivers not being able to separate the offensive line inside the red zone, inside the 5, inside the 10, not getting the push. And again, Louisiana Tech turns over the offense, 25 on the season, 25 picks. That spells doom for Illinois in this one. Typically, against a Conference USA team, I'm going to take the Big Ten and 6 points. But Illinois, again, the 10th best team in the Big Ten in terms of seeding. Louisiana Tech at number 2 in Conference USA. We saw what Marshall and Rice did in postseason play to date. I like Louisiana Tech to cover the 6 points. Take the Bulldogs. Let's go 47-34 in this one in a high-scoring affair against the Illini in the Heart of Dallas Bowl. Our thoughts on the game. Would love to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.